What if the person you hired to pretend they loved you ended up being the one your heart couldn't live without? Nathan, a billionaire used to controlling every part of his life, thought he had found the perfect solution to his family's relentless pressure: hire someone to play the role of his girlfriend, just for one night. No emotions, no strings attached. Just a flawless performance at his sister's wedding to get everyone off his back. But what he didn't expect was Sophia, an independent, struggling artist who challenged him in ways no one ever had. What started as a simple arrangement quickly spiraled into something far more dangerous, and far more real. Because sometimes, the biggest risk isn't in business or money. It's in handing your heart to someone you never planned on keeping. Nathan Cole had everything people thought they wanted: wealth, power, and a name that opened doors everywhere he went. But behind the flawless exterior, there was a constant war he couldn't escape. His family's expectations. His sister Emma's wedding was days away, and the pressure was crushing him. He knew the whispers were coming: why is Nathan still single? Why can't he settle down? What's wrong with him? For his family, especially his sharp-tongued mother Charlotte, showing up without a partner wasn't just embarrassing, it was unacceptable. Nathan hated losing control, and this time, he was cornered. He couldn't buy his way out of this one, and he couldn't silence the gossip. Unless, he found a solution no one saw coming. The idea was reckless. Risky. Completely beneath the cold, calculated businessman he'd built himself to be. But desperate times called for desperate measures. And that's when the thought struck him. What if he didn't need a real girlfriend at all? What if he could just hire one? Sophia Bennett's world couldn't have been more different from Nathan's. While he moved through boardrooms and billion-dollar deals, she spent her days surrounded by canvases, brushes, and the smell of paint. Her art was her heartbeat, beautiful, raw, and full of color, but passion didn't always pay the rent. Bills piled up faster than commissions, and despite her talent, Sophia had grown used to living on the edge of barely making it. Still, she carried herself with the kind of pride that made people forget her struggles. She wasn't about to beg anyone for help. Which was exactly why Nathan's proposition felt like an insult and a lifeline. He laid it out as if it were just another business deal: attend his sister's wedding, pretend to be his girlfriend, and in return he'd make sure her financial troubles disappeared. His tone was cold, calculated, almost arrogant. Sophia almost laughed in his face. The very idea of selling herself for appearances clashed with everything she believed in. But then she saw something in his eyes, not just arrogance, but desperation. Beneath the sharp suit and untouchable confidence, Nathan looked like a man cornered. And maybe, just maybe, they both needed something only the other could provide. So with her pride bruised but her spirit unbroken, Sophia agreed. Not for the money. Not for the billionaire. But for the chance to step into a world she never imagined, even if only for one night. The Cole family wedding was the kind of event most people only saw in glossy magazines: towering floral arrangements, crystal chandeliers glittering above a sea of designer gowns, and guests who measured their worth in last names and bank accounts. To Nathan, it was just another battlefield. Every smile was a performance, every conversation a calculated move. When he arrived with Sophia on his arm, the room shifted. Heads turned. Whispers started. For the first time, Nathan wasn't walking in alone. Emma, radiant in her bridal gown, beamed when she saw them. Finally, she whispered, pulling Nathan aside with a grin. I was starting to think you'd never bring someone. But Emma's joy wasn't the problem, Charlotte was. Nathan's mother had an eye sharper than any critic, and she studied Sophia like a diamond appraiser looking for flaws. Her smile was polite, but her gaze was ice. Sophia met it head-on, refusing to shrink. She'd stepped into this world knowing she'd be tested. And she wasn't about to fail. Then came Oliver, Emma's new husband. Unlike Charlotte, he seemed instantly charmed by Sophia's warmth and her talk of painting. Within minutes, she had him laughing, leaning in, genuinely intrigued by her passion for art. And Nathan? For once, he wasn't performing. Watching Sophia handle his family, calm, graceful, and unafraid, did something to him he hadn't expected. She wasn't just playing a role. She was stealing the spotlight. But if Sophia thought the night would be smooth sailing, she was wrong. Because the real test was just about to begin. The music shifted from elegant strings to a slow, steady rhythm, the kind that pulled couples onto the dance floor. Nathan wasn't the type to indulge in sentimental displays, but tonight wasn't about him. It was about keeping up the act. And that meant asking Sophia to dance. "May I?" he said, his hand extended. Sophia hesitated for just a second, long enough to remind him she wasn't intimidated, before slipping her hand into his. Her touch was light, but it sent an unexpected current through him. On the dance floor, their bodies fell into sync almost too easily. Nathan's hand rested at the small of her back, guiding her with the kind of confidence that came from boardrooms and negotiations. But Sophia wasn't a deal to be closed. She moved with her own rhythm, graceful yet untamed, and it forced Nathan to follow instead of lead. For the first time all evening, his mask slipped. He wasn't the billionaire under pressure or the son avoiding his mother's scrutiny. He was just a man. Holding a woman who made the room fade into nothing. Sophia noticed it too. The heat in his eyes wasn't rehearsed. The way he leaned in, the subtle brush of his thumb against her waist, none of it felt fake. And when her breath caught, she hated how real it all felt. Their eyes locked, and for one dangerous moment, the line between arrangement and something more blurred. It wasn't supposed to feel like this. It wasn't supposed to feel like anything. But sometimes, a single dance changes everything. When the last toast had been made and the final song faded, Nathan walked Sophia out into the cool night air. The mansion's gardens were glowing with fairy lights, but for the first time all evening, the two of them were away from the crowd, no family watching, no guests whispering. Just silence. Nathan loosened his tie, the perfect billionaire mask slipping away. "You did well tonight," he said, his voice low, almost reluctant. Sophia smirked, crossing her arms. "Did well? I wasn't auditioning for a part, Nathan." That flash of fire in her eyes, it wasn't the polite, polished charm she'd shown his family. This was the real Sophia. And it hit him harder than he cared to admit. He should have been relieved. The deal had worked. His mother's suspicions had quieted, Emma was happy, and for once the whispers weren't about him being alone. But instead of satisfaction, there was a hollow ache. Because the night had felt real. Too real. Sophia, on the other hand, was fighting her own battle. She reminded herself this wasn't her world. The gowns, the chandeliers, the billion-dollar conversations, none of it belonged to her. She'd only agreed to this for practical reasons, and the moment she let herself believe otherwise, she'd be in trouble. Yet when Nathan looked at her, not as a billionaire, not as a man doing damage control, but as if she were the only person who mattered, she felt something shift. Something dangerous. Both of them knew this was supposed to end when the night did. But neither could shake the thought that maybe, it didn't have to. The agreement was supposed to end with the wedding, but Nathan couldn't let it. The next morning, instead of closing the book on their deal, he found himself dialing Sophia's number. His tone was calm, almost casual, but the words carried a weight he couldn't disguise. "Dinner. Tomorrow night. No contracts. No family. Just us." Sophia froze when she read the message. Part of her wanted to ignore it, pretend the wedding had been nothing more than an act. But another part, the part that still remembered the way his hand lingered at her waist on the dance floor, whispered that maybe she should go. When she walked into the restaurant the next evening, Nathan was already waiting. No boardroom suit, no icy facade. Just a man in a crisp shirt, sleeves rolled up, watching her like she was the only thing in the room worth noticing. For the first time, the conversation wasn't about saving face or playing roles. He asked about her paintings, her inspirations, her dreams. She teased him about his obsession with control, about the way he hid vulnerability behind sharp words and sharper suits. And somewhere between the laughter and the quiet moments, the lines blurred completely. This wasn't an arrangement anymore. This was a date. A real one. And when Sophia caught herself leaning in, when Nathan's hand brushed against hers and lingered, she realized the most dangerous thing of all: she wanted this. But wanting Nathan Cole came with a price. And soon, the world around them would remind her exactly how high that price could be. For a while, Nathan and Sophia lived in their bubble, dinners that turned into long conversations, late-night phone calls that stretched until dawn. What had started as an arrangement was slowly becoming something neither of them could walk away from. But bubbles always burst. At a gallery opening where Sophia was showcasing her latest pieces, Nathan made the mistake of letting his guard down. He stood beside her, hand resting lightly at the small of her back, pride written across his face. To the crowd, it was a picture-perfect couple. To one man, it was a target. James Morrison. A rival in business, and a man who had never forgiven Nathan for outmaneuvering him in a deal years ago. James was charming on the surface, all smooth smiles and expensive suits, but his eyes carried something darker: envy. When he spotted Sophia, his interest sharpened. He waited until Nathan was pulled into a conversation across the room, then approached her with a smirk. "So you're the woman who finally tamed Nathan Cole," James said, voice dripping with mockery. "Funny. I didn't think he was capable of commitment." Sophia bristled, instinct telling her this wasn't just small talk. James leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Be careful, Sophia. Men like Nathan don't fall in love. They buy what they need, and when they're done, they move on. If you're smart, you'll make sure you're not just another business deal." The words hit harder than she wanted to admit, because deep down, they echoed the fear she hadn't voiced aloud. Was this real? Or was she just fooling herself? And when Nathan returned, finding James too close to the woman who'd begun to matter more than he ever expected, the fire in his eyes promised one thing: this game was far from over. The deal was supposed to be simple: one night, one role, one clean escape. But nothing about Nathan and Sophia had stayed simple. A fake relationship had become a dangerous truth, and now, the world around them was starting to notice. Nathan couldn't deny it anymore. Sophia wasn't just a cover, a convenient shield against family gossip. She had become the one person who slipped past his defenses, who saw the man beneath the billionaire mask. And that terrified him more than any hostile takeover ever could. Sophia, meanwhile, was torn. Every glance, every touch, every laugh with Nathan pulled her deeper into a world she had no claim to. And James Morrison's warning echoed in her mind like poison: men like Nathan don't fall in love. They buy what they need, and when they're done, they move on. Two hearts that were never supposed to collide now found themselves on the edge of something neither could control. But in a world where money, power, and envy ruled every move, one question remained. Were Nathan and Sophia ready to risk everything for something real, or would their love story shatter before it ever truly began?